Hello and welcome to Connect MKE. I'm your host, Denise Callaway. The job of protecting Milwaukee County residents and keeping them safe is no small task. But Milwaukee County Sheriff Denita Ball is up to the task. The first woman elected Milwaukee County Sheriff just last November, Dr. Ball has more than 30 years' experience in law enforcement. She'll need that experience as she tackles the challenges facing the department and our community. Sheriff Denita Ball joins us now. Welcome to Connect MKE, Sheriff Ball, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
With 3 decades of law enforcement experience in Milwaukee, including 3 years as Chief Deputy Sheriff, you know the challenges that exist. Still, as you took on this new role, was there anything that surprised you?
I would say the amount of time that you are doing the job. I work a full day in the evenings. I'm oftentimes attending community meetings, and then I'll go home and still do work, and I'll get phone calls and text messages. And on the weekends, I also have events that I'm attending. So I think that time element is what surprised me the most, but I have enjoyed all of it because it allows me the opportunity to engage with the community, to get to know them, they get to know me, and I'm just meeting some great people.
It's 24/7.
Correct.
The Sheriff's Department is responsible for providing public safety in a number of different places, including the courthouse, the county grounds, parks, freeways, the Milwaukee County Jail, and also Mitchell International Airport. It is a lot of ground to cover, and staffing in some of those areas has been an issue. What is staffing like now?
Staffing is getting better. I think our partnership with the county's human resources area has helped us to increase our staffing, whether it's in the jail and now as far as the deputy sheriff ranks. We currently have a class going for each. And so we're seeing some progress, but we still have people who are retiring, and we are taking some of the correctional officers and putting them into the deputy class. So I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot in that respect, but we've been making inroads, and there's a lot of progress on that front.
But as we've found, no matter what the business, organization, or governmental unit is, filling those vacancies can be a real challenge.
Absolutely. And we know that we're not the only one that is struggling with staff. And in almost every industry, we find that there's the same issue. People are having, or organizations and agencies are having problems staffing those positions. So we're not alone. But we're just trying to do what we can to make sure that our staffing levels are at a level where our people are safe, as well as we're keeping the community safe.
Is one of the challenges that you face is that people may not always understand the unique role that deputy sheriffs play in our community?
Absolutely. Most people are familiar with the municipal policing agencies, and so they are responsible for everything that occurs within that county. As was stated before, we have specific tasks, although we have authority throughout the county, and we do help the other municipalities, whether it's from Bayside to Oak Creek. We will help them. But our main focus are those areas that you mentioned earlier, the airport, the courts, the over 150 miles of expressway, over 150 parks, and the jail.
When we talk about the Milwaukee County Jail, that's one area that's been impacted by the shortages because you have both corrections officers and you also have some deputy sheriffs who are in the jail. From January 2020 to just last December, there have been 6 deaths in the jail. 4 of those deaths were suicide. What's being done to keep individuals safe, even from themselves sometimes, when they're in the Milwaukee County Jail?
Yes, staffing has really impacted the jail, and we've had to have deputies in those roles to make sure that everyone is safe. But I just want to remind people that yes, unfortunately, we have had some suicides, some deaths in custody. Our goal is not to have any deaths while someone is in our care and in our custody. You don't see how many times daily we are putting steps in place or doing things to prevent suicides. You do hear about those unfortunate ones, but on a daily basis, several times a day, our people are intervening because if someone is really hell-bent on taking their life, eventually they will find a way. And so I think we are doing a good job of, trying to make sure that those in our care and in our custody are safe. We are looking at our processes. We always do that after a death in custody to make sure if there's something that we can do better. And maybe there's something that we have in place that wasn't enforced, but we're always looking at that. And so I'm also looking at different areas where we can bring in some coping skills. They have, tablets, have some information on those tablets that reinforce the coping skills that we give them when they come in. And even we're looking at those who have been arrested for the first time. They may not know what to expect. And so this is a harsh reality for them. And looking at programs that other areas have where it works with those first offenders to, again, give them the coping skills that they need.
It's one of the issues that you face when folks come into the jail is one that we're facing in the community right now as well, and that is just the extreme level and stress that people feel that they're under and the mental health issues that people feel that just may be exasperated when they're in a situation where their stress is just heightened.
That could be a factor. As you know, usually the jails are really a mental health ward on steroids. And so a lot of people who need help, they cannot get that help. And so they end up being incarcerated instead of being in a facility where they can get the help that they need. And I think if we do address some of those issues, including mental health or some of the other issues which may have caused a person to commit a crime, if we can work together to address those issues, then maybe once, they serve their time, that they will have hope, and even, behind bars, if we have some programs that can help facilitate a job placement or improving their education and things like that, when they get out, they will be more equipped to have the jobs that they may need that may have caused them to commit a crime because they didn't have the funds or wasn't able to provide housing. So I think we have to look at a person, look at everything that's going on with a person if we really want to make sure that they're not a revolving door within the criminal justice system.
What you're sharing with us now is so interesting because I think when most of us think of someone who's incarcerated and they think of someone who's in jail, they don't necessarily think of these support programs that exist to decrease recidivism and to try to give people hope as they're serving their time, that there are going to be opportunities for them when they're released from jail.
And if you think about it, we have them for 24 hours a day. Yes, there's some time in there where they're sleeping. So let's make it a productive time for them. And then that's what we are looking to do, increase our program and look at the challenges that a person has on the outside and see what we can do while they are inside to help address, or at least start addressing those issues so that once they are back in the community, they can be productive citizens. And again, as you were saying, hopefully we won't see them again because they're not reoffending.
The city of Milwaukee has seen, yet unfortunately, in 2022, another record year for homicides. When there is that level of violence in part of the community that you serve, how does that impact the work that you all do and violence prevention in the areas that you patrol, the parks, the freeways, etc.?
It does have a chilling effect on what we are trying to do within the community and the work that not only we're doing, but that the municipalities are doing. When we see a violent crime rate at the level that we've seen the last 3 years. So it does have a significant effect. We've seen that even on our expressways, we've had reckless driving, or we've had people who are, firing shots at someone. Things happen. You may accidentally cut somebody off. Generally, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry." But then now you have somebody that is, taking out a gun and firing a shot at you, or because you didn't move over fast enough, they are tailgating you, and then, they are pulling out a gun. So what you're seeing in the different districts and the different communities, we're seeing it play out as well on the expressway. People, they just don't have patience anymore. We are seeing it, in our courts, meaning that because of the fact that we are arresting so many people, there's a backlog in the court system. And so that affects the jail, the capacity within the jail. And so until their cases are adjudicated, they are, housed by us. And so that affects the capacity level. So what you're seeing in the community with the level of violence is really stressing the entire criminal justice system. We know that the district attorney's office don't have enough prosecutors. The public defender's office does not have enough people to represent those who are in our care and our custody. So it's stressing out the entire system, but it does have an effect on all of us.
We're going to continue our conversation with Milwaukee County Sheriff Denita Ball and hear about some of her goals and plans for the department and the community that can address some of those things that she just talked about. That discussion is right after this short break. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Denita Ball, who is the first woman to serve as Milwaukee County Sheriff. When you were elected, you promised a more hands-on approach to the job. What does that look like, and how is that playing out in your work?
Well, it means that I attend more of the community forums, community meetings, getting to know the people that we serve. Also, I'm trying to be more engaged within our agency up front instead of being there at the very end, so that decision making can be made sooner rather than later. I attend the county board meetings. Most of them, on occasion, the staff or my other direct reports will fill in for me. But that's what I mean about being more engaged, more hands-on, upfront, being involved in the day-to-day operations so that when decisions are being made, they can be made sooner.
Did that approach really come from the experience that you have? Because you have more than 30 years of law enforcement experience, most of it with the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee Police Department. But is that what your approach grew from, your experience, things that worked and maybe things that didn't work, and so you don't want those same things to happen as you move forward?
Absolutely. And that's what we do. We bring our past experiences with us. And so I know that when things worked better, it was because everyone was engaged in the process from the top all the way down. And so I do have opportunities for others who are at the entry level to be engaged in the process as well. So yes, that experience that I gathered from the Milwaukee Police Department is being beneficial now while I'm at the Sheriff's Office.
One goal you discussed during the campaign was increasing patrols in Milwaukee County's 150 parks and the 150 miles along the freeway and county roads that your deputies are responsible for patrolling. Why is that important, and what do you expect that the outcomes will be from that effort?
Because of the number of parks and the amount of expressway that we have, we do rely on our partnerships with the municipalities. And so we have enjoyed a robust relationship with them. We have been working to leverage those relationships to improve the number of opportunities that we have to coordinate our efforts and increase visibility. And so as a result, I believe it's going to show that or have an impact on what goes on our expressway as well as in our county parks. That visibility is important. We are relying on education as well because we are educating the public regarding what we're doing. But when all else fails, there's enforcement. And if that's what it takes to get someone to change their habits, then that's what we will do. And so working in tandem with our local, state, and federal partners, it has helped us tremendously. And going forward, I don't expect that to change. Anything, it would get even better.
What are some of those education efforts that you have found to be helpful?
Well, we definitely are using our social media more to let the community know what the dangers of, distracted or reckless driving, or give tips regarding winter driving, and just talk about where we are as far as our reckless driving enforcement. We're going to be in these troubled areas. And so it's alerting the public that these areas are, they're problematic. We are increasing our enforcement, and we have seen a decrease in crashes in most of those areas as our enforcement level has gone up. So we're using that tool, again, our social media tool. We're getting ready to launch a podcast where we're opening the doors of the Sheriff's Office, and you get a chance to look in and see what the various departments and units and divisions are doing, and how what they do really impacts what is happening on the streets or in our communities. So, and then just attending the community meetings that they have. I just attended a listen and learn that County Supervisor Priscilla Cox-Jones had, and others, where we're engaging the community and telling them or educating them regarding what we do, what we don't do, and then just, answering their questions.
I do want to go back for a second and talk a little bit about reckless driving and enforcement of reckless driving. How much are your deputies doing to enforce that kind of work now compared to what was being done, let's say, 3 years ago when you were the chief deputy sheriff?
I think the level of driving has gotten worse over time. And so the focus has increased. And as a result, we have had to step up our enforcement efforts. So we do have a reckless driving initiative. I just had a meeting with the other municipalities to talk about what we are doing within our respective areas of responsibilities, because as you know, a car has no boundaries. And so I wanted to see how we can leverage what we're doing and what they're doing to have a greater impact. And so we have increased our enforcement regarding reckless driving because it has increased over the years.
And having that cooperation with other municipalities is so important, because so many times we hear or see about reckless driving situations that get out of control, law enforcement becomes involved, and people are going across boundaries as if they don't exist.
Exactly. And so as I stated before, and you just reiterated, it is important that we work with our municipalities because honestly, we can't be in their different areas all the time, but they are. But we can work together. And so one of the things that we talked about yesterday, it was the initiatives that they have. And I think there's going to be more communication because as a result, we have reached out to some of the other municipalities who are doing some of the same things that we're doing. We found out that a lot of them are doing the same things, but we can leverage what we're doing and have more of an impact if we all do it together, work together.
You also want to expand mental resources for mental health care and crisis care. What are your plans to move forward in that direction?
Well, as I stated before, we are looking at a first-time program where those who are being arrested or incarcerated for the first time, we know that they may not be used to that, and it can affect their mental health. And so we are looking to looking at those programs to see what will work for our agency, but also to have those coping skills so that those who have been there, for a while, maybe their mental health has started to deteriorate. So we want to be able to capture that sooner rather than later. But we're working with WellPath, who is our healthcare provider, and they do provide mental health services for us. And so we have continued to work with them to evaluate our needs and what they can provide and increase that. So definitely the mental health portion in the jail is important, but I'm also concerned regarding the mental health of my deputies, my correction officers, because they're working long hours due to the fact that staffing is not where it needs to be. And so they're working overtime, and looking at mental health for them. We increased our chaplaincy program, which can benefit not only those who work for the agency, but also the community. And then we have a peer support program that also will assist our members when they feel that they need to have some extra counseling. But we know that the stressors within the community, sometimes you can't just leave it at home, that it does come to work. And so as a result, we are trying to not only address it for those in our care and our custody, of those who are employed by the sheriff's office.
As you all know, it's a very difficult job, so that kind of support is needed. I want to talk for just a minute about drug abuse and misuse of drugs, because it also obviously impacts the work of the Milwaukee County law enforcement officers as well. There's a fentanyl crisis in our community that is bigger than any one agency or one community. What work is the Sheriff's Department doing around this issue of the explosion that we're seeing in both fentanyl uses and, unfortunately, overdoses and death?
We are increasing our education not only to the public, but also to our members so that they can understand the importance or how deadly this drug is. And we're making sure that they have equipment when they are going out there and they are capturing or securing evidence that they may touch that could affect them. But we have a grant with the state, and we have a lot of Narcan. As you may know or seen in the news, our deputies have saved so many lives. We have come upon a disabled auto that is on the expressway, or one that was involved in a crash, and we get there and the person is unresponsive. But if you look at the amount of damage to the auto, can't understand why. And so as a result, we've had to use a lot of Narcan. And so it has really brought a person back to life, someone who was unresponsive. And so we're seeing that what is happening in the community has a direct effect on the people who come into our care and in our custody. And then it has an effect on the enforcement that we're doing.
What is one goal that you have for the department that when you meet it will have the greatest impact on the community, Sheriff Ball?
Our community engagement. I believe it's important that we improve police-community relations. I think that when we are working together, we can accomplish much. And so oftentimes, because of things that have occurred in some other area of the community, it has a direct effect on us, unfortunately. And so we have to always continue to, improve those relationships. And we do that by one interaction at a time. But I think if we can do that, it'll have a direct effect on our enforcement efforts. Maybe we won't have to do as much enforcement because of the community work that we have put in.
Thank you so much for being with us, Sheriff Denita Ball. We wish you nothing but success and safe shifts for all of your officers. That's this episode of Connect MKE. I'm your host, Denise Callaway. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you tune into our next Connect MKE show. It's all about conversations that make a difference. Be well, and we'll see you soon.